controversial Chinese trucking vessel Yuan Wang 5 has docked at Sri Lanka's Hambanthota port despite security concerns raised by India.
According to the Pentagon, that class of vessels is operated by the Chinese military and can be used to monitor satellite, rocket, and ballistic missile launches.
Called a satellite tracking vessel, almost certainly has a range of intelligence gathering capabilities.
There is no denying the fact that the Yuan Wang represents the Chinese military. It poses a threat, a challenge to India. This vessel can be used to spy on multiple strategic assets in India.
Hi everybody, on 16th of August 2022, a Chinese vessel named Yuan Wang 5 was given clearance by the Colombo port to enter the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. And ever since this vessel had been docked in Sri Lanka and now is serving the Indian Ocean, India has raised some serious concerns over this move both by Sri Lanka and China. Why? Because this ship is technically a spy ship that could be used to spy on some of the most important locations of India. And more importantly, this spy ship strategy marks the beginning of the phase 2 of China's string of pearls strategy to encircle and dominate India. So in this episode today, let's do a deep dive and find out why is this ship docking at Hambantota port a clear threat to India? How and why is China using its spy ship strategy to dominate the Indian Ocean? And lastly, what are the study materials to help you understand the master plan of China to dominate the geopolitics of the 21st century? But before we dive into this detailed episode, I want to quickly thank our partners, and that is ET Money. Most people I know actually use a simple shortcut to invest in mutual funds. They look at the top 5-star rated funds with good returns and invest in them right away. But you know what guys, there's actually a problem with that. The problem is that these top funds keep changing every year. And if you look at the last 15-year data, you will see that if you kept on jumping to each top fund of each year every year, your overall returns would have been around 14%, which would just beat the Sensex returns of 13.5%, which further reduces after paying taxes on short-term capital gains every year. But here's where AT Money Genius comes in. It's a membership that gives you different mutual fund portfolios that helps you invest in a mix of index funds of large cap, mid cap, small cap, international, along with debt and gold index funds. These portfolios then, on the basis of the market conditions like inflation and interest rates, change the mix in a way that you earn better returns in all market conditions. And if you had invested in the Genius High Growth Mutual Fund portfolio for any 7 years in the last 15 years, you would have earned 16.1% annual returns. So if this sounds useful to you, use the special link in the description to download the ET Money app now. The first thing you need to understand is the strategic importance of the Hambantota port and why does China love this port so much. If you look at the map, this port's location is at the southern extremity of Sri Lanka, which is overlooking South Asia's vital sea lanes, and this makes it an important commercial asset for China. These routes through Hambantota are used by 36,000 ships, including 4,500 oil tankers, and more importantly, this port saves 3 days of sailing time and fuel for these commercial ships. And lastly, it's located at a very strategic location with respect to some of the most important shipping points in the world, including Singapore, Dubai, Mombasa, Durban and Djibouti. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, the China-Sri Lanka relations started. Long story short, China gave out a $307 million loan to Sri Lanka to build the Hambantota port. They put forth conditions that only Chinese company and Chinese workers will build it and charged an exorbitant interest of 6.3% as compared to the global standards of 1 to 2%. But when this port was built, it was so unviable that by 2016, it accumulated losses of $300 million. By this time, Sri Lanka's economic condition got so bad that they could not repay those loans to China. So very conveniently in 2017, China took the entire port on a 99-year lease at a cost of $1.12 billion. On top of that, China also took a 70% stake at the Hambantota port. This is how Chinese took control over the critical Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. If this is very clear to you, let's move to the next important aspect to understand what is the military significance of Hambantota port both for India and China. Firstly, Hambantota gives China a very close access to the Strait of Malacca. And if you watched our previous episode, I have told a dozen times that Strait of Malacca is an important choke point from where more than 50% of China's oil and goods pass from. So because of the US-China tensions, if US tries to choke this point at any time, China needs to have a strong hold over this region of the ocean. And Hambantota being so close to this point becomes the best suited location for the Chinese military. Secondly, from the Indian standpoint, this gives China a very close proximity to India. And if you look at the map, you will see that Hambantota is just 1500 kilometers away from our Andaman and Nicobar Islands and barely 500 odd kilometers away from Kanyakumari. Now the question over here is, all these points are still far away from Hambantota port, right? So unless China does something fishy, it should not worry India, isn't it? Then just because this ship is docked in Hambantota, why does India have a problem? Well, this is what brings us to the shady claims of the Chinese. Firstly, China has been reiterating time and again that the only purpose of this ship is to monitor and track its own satellite, and Beijing does not want to harm any other country. But the shady thing over here is that these ships are neither operated nor controlled by the China National Space Administration. Instead, these ships are directly operated by the Chinese Navy and are put under the direct command of the People Liberation Army Strategic Support Force. Secondly, this ship is no ordinary ship at all. It's an extraordinary vessel with a displacement of more than 25,000 tons and could possess a host of powerful instruments including radars, antenna and sensors that could be used for both civilian and military purposes. Now, as far as aerial reach is concerned, it has an extraordinary reach up to 750 kilometers, which means when docked at Hambantota, 3 of our important ports including Chennai Port, Cochin Port and Tuticorin Port will fall under its range. On top of that, this also includes our nuclear facilities at Kudankalam and Kalpakkam. So if China starts collecting sensitive information from these points, it's a major security concern for India. This is the second reason why India is extremely annoyed at the docking of the Yuan Wang 5 vessel at the Hambantota port. And thirdly, we have China's long-term strategy to control the Indian Ocean. And if you remember from our previous episodes, China is deploying a string of pearl strategy to surround India. And just like they've taken control over Sri Lanka, China has very cleverly taken control of our neighboring regions from both sides. So if you look at their strategic movements in the last 10 years, between 2011 and 2015, Bangladesh became the second largest recipient of Chinese arms in the world, with China supplying over 80% of its arms imports over the last decade. And now it is also understood that China is helping Bangladesh build a submarine base in Pekua. And the point to be noted over here is that in January 2016, a Bangladeshi official told Reuters that Bangladesh has never hosted a Chinese naval ship and has no plans to do so. But just a few weeks later, 2 Chinese-guided missile frigates and a supply ship were docked at Chittagong, and eventually they conducted their military drills very comfortably with the Bangladesh Navy. So you see, there is a pattern over here. China first does a favor and then comes back to gain access over an important region that is being controlled by that particular country. Similarly, in December 2021, China gifted a Ming-class diesel-electric submarine to Myanmar, and now they are developing a multi-billion-dollar deep-sea port in Quakefew Port in Myanmar. And the same thing has also been going on the other side of the ocean. China first built its military base in Djibouti, and from 2017 to 2021, China became cozy with Pakistan. And fun fact is that China is Pakistan's largest supplier of major arms including fighter aircrafts, warships, submarines and even missiles. In fact, Pakistan even got China's largest and the most advanced warship it ever exported. And if you remember from our Pakistan episode, just like in Sri Lanka, even Pakistan has been debt trapped by China. And just like China took Sri Lanka's Hambantota port on a 99-year lease, they've also taken Pakistan's Gwadar port on a lease for 40 freaking years. Also, in total, Pakistan owes China not one, not two, but $24.7 billion in debt. And even these loans are said to have an exorbitant interest rate of 4.1% as compared to global standards of just 1 to 2%. And the Chinese built not just the Gwadar port, but 26 more projects in Pakistan that include solar projects, rail projects, highways, hydro projects, ports, and even fiber optic cables running from Pakistan to China. And just like Pakistan, even in Sri Lanka, you will see Chinese roads, coal power plants, railways, airports, housing complex, and a lot more. So you see, this way, after doing big favors for our neighboring countries, China is rolling out the phase 2 of the string of pearls strategy, whereby China would use these favors to pressurize these countries and gain access in the Indian Ocean. Eventually, it could very easily spy on India's most important regions. So this spy ship arrival at Hambantota is just one of the many arrivals that are yet to happen in Pakistan, Bangladesh and Myanmar. Now in case of Hambantota, after fueling, Yuan Wang 5 will have enough supplies to stay in the Indian Ocean region for 18,000 nautical miles, which is over 34,000 kilometers. And they will have enough provisions to keep sailing for 3 to 4 months. So as this ship sails in the Indian Ocean, it will be able to track the launch of any Indian satellite, India's spaceport in Sriharikota and even the missile test range in Odisha. Apart from that, while sailing, it will also be able to collect critical data about the Indian Ocean that can be used during wartime. And this includes data like water salinity, ocean temperature, sound wave propagation in water and so on and so forth. And by the way, this spy ship docking is just one of the many moves that China has made in the last 2 years. And if you look at the data, it has nearly sent 53 surveillance ships into several parts of the world in the last 2 years. They deployed the Yuan Wang 1 and 2 in the Pacific Ocean, Yuan Wang 3 was covering the Atlantic coast, and Yuan Wang 4 was already in the Indian Ocean before. So it's obvious that these kind of activities will keep happening in the future. And the scariest fact is that the US Naval Intelligence states that by 2030, the Chinese will have 67 new major surface ships and 12 new nuclear-powered submarines. And when completed, a fleet this big is enough to control the entire Indian Ocean region. And the irony over here is that China says that it also needs to dock at Hambantota to get fuel and food. But I don't know if they realize this, but then Sri Lanka is already facing a severe shortage of fuel, cooking gas, medicines and even food. This is the reason why India gave out a $4 billion aid to Sri Lanka. So I don't know if the Chinese are too cruel enough to get fuel and food from an already struggling nation, or stupid enough to make such a lame excuse and expect India and the world to believe it. And this brings me to the last part of the episode, and that are the study materials to help you understand China's geopolitical strategy better. Moving on, the first thing I'm attaching is the Belt and Road Initiative video that will take you in depth to help you understand the $1 trillion strategy of China. Secondly, I am attaching a document that will give an in-depth understanding of the Indian Ocean and why is China spending $1 billion just to take control of this Indian Ocean region. And lastly, I am attaching the TEDx talk of the author of this book called The Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Watch this talk and you'll understand that this tactic that China is using is not new at all, and it has already been used by several countries to gain a geopolitical advantage over the world. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.